Alright, let's make sure I'm on. And Wacom's all set up. Alrighty. Load tool here. Pause that. Okay. Let me grab this. Been a long time since I've been on here. Let's see if I remember how to do this. Chat. ZBrush. Okay. One thing I want to touch on real quick. Let me go ahead and load up something. Let's go to, where am I doing? I'm streaming this morning. Okay, so streaming, and then we can look at our old Chops McGee here. Okay, we got Chops McGee, and also let's go ahead and load up. Go to Tools here, hit the comma key, go to your Lightbox, and we'll load up Nick Z's base mail here. So one thing, oops, let me get rid of this. One thing that came up was sculpting on I've got all these streaming topics I've been collecting for a while, but one I can hit really easily is if you want to sculpt on something in the middle, you can use ArrayMesh as an instancing tool. So we've got our character here, and we go to Subtool, and we can just append anything, really. Let's append if I just want to append like a polymesh, I'll just grab a polymesh 3D star here. And then I'll go down here to initialize, hit a Q cube, and then we're off to the races here. So I go to hit big polyframe, and let's go ahead and move this down. And let's say I want to sculpt across the x-axis. I'm going to tap X, which is going to be our transform activate symmetry across the x-axis here. Hey everybody, thanks for showing up. Sorry I've been gone for a long time. I feel weird streaming again. Hopefully I can get back in the swing of things. But we've got this thing here. So let's say I wanted to put a gun on a holster over here on the side of it, but I want to model the gun down the middle. So all I need to do is, number one, I probably want to scale this down just to make the gun. I mean, you know, what's interesting is with ArrayMesh, I could just put the gun up here and scale it into place as well. So I can work at any scale I want, but just to make it easier, we'll turn on ArrayMesh. We'll say, okay, make it ArrayMesh, and I want to put this ArrayMesh up on his hip. So I could manually go in here and do like an offset of the Y or whatever, and then offset of the X, or yeah, X amount. Here we go. We can put this over here. That's kind of a pain. What I prefer to do is if you hit the W key, you go to your Gizmo, and then you can hit the Y key, which will turn Gizmo off and go back to old trusty transpose here. So we can turn on transpose. And then I can just manually just go in here and transpose this thing. Makes it a little bit easier to work on. Now we can also go in here to rotate, and we can rotate this thing like so. So now, as I'm working on this gun down here, it's going to go over there. So let's go ahead and hit Y to go out of transpose mode. And we also want to turn off transpose for that. And we might also need to turn on lock position, lock size. There we go. And then we'll hit Y again, and we'll just go ahead and shove that over, turn on transpose. There we go. So that is one way you can just work down here in the middle. So if we want to, we can like, okay, Alt paint this, and then Alt paint this, and then we can go here to like inset each poly a single poly, and then we'll Q mesh this poly group all, or we can Q mesh a single poly and just push that through, and there we go. You got the world's coolest gun. We're going to go to Bevel, edge loop complete, and then we can go ahead and do a quick mirror and weld across the X, and then we'll do an insert single edge loop, and then we'll alt paint these ones, and then we'll Q mesh this out, and we can slide these back. So we'll slide a single edge back here. Bam. So now it's all over there. If we want to, we can also append new if we want to put one in either hip, and we can say on this one, we want this one to be mirrored across the X. So now as you're modeling this one, we'll go ahead and do that. If you want to get even fancier, let's go down to, let's make this another Q cube, and we'll hit Y, we'll drop this down, and we can go ahead and turn off that ArrayMesh. So instead of ArrayMesh, I'm going to use NanoMesh. In fact, we don't even need this NanoMesh, although we can start with a mesh. Let's start with a mesh. So I'm going to go to B, I, brush, insert. We'll go to the model kit here. And on this one, I'm going to hit W. And then as I go through this model kit, I can just kind of steal anything I want to work on. And we'll steal something. We'll steal like this thing right here. That's good enough. So with this one selected, I can go brush, create, insert mesh, new. And then you go over here to your brush settings. We can go to create, create NanoMesh brush. And now you have a NanoMesh brush with that plugged in. Now, you don't have to do that. You can also just take this polymesh here and go over here to clone. And then you can just use your BZM, your Z modeler brush. And then you can hit the M key and you can just grab it. And now that'll swap out that cube that comes with the default Z modeler with this thing here. So now we can go in here and we can hit, let me see if I can go in here. Okay, so if we have a nanomesh here, we can say we want a nanomesh on a single poly. So we have to go to insert nanomesh on a single poly. And we can go, you know what? We want a nanomesh on this poly. We want a nanomesh on this poly. We want a nanomesh on this poly. And now these are all instances. Just like ArrayMesh, these are all instance meshes. And if you want to work on those, all you got to do, and you can work on them in the middle of the world, is you can go to your nanomesh properties and you can say edit mesh. And now this mesh is right along the middle of the world here, so you can just keep modeling on this thing here. So we'll go in here and we'll say QMesh polygroup all, and we'll say QMesh polygroup all, and then when we go out of edit mesh, those things have been updated. And one further than that, if you're so inclined, and this is where I would be more inclined, just for a little bit more. If I want to put something on this character, actually, you know what? I have a character that already has this set up. For instance, let's go to streaming, and we're going to look at the old ZBrush female. I need to finish this thing. TextSuit details. Let's go to TextSuit details 01. Okay, so we started. This is an earlier version of her where we started blocking her out, and we have these little buttons on her. So those used to be nanomeshes. I'd probably have to, you know what? Okay, let's just do this. Let's go ahead and delete those. Let's say I wanted to put buttons everywhere. So for instance, what I could do is I can go to an insert mesh brush and I can go, okay, I want to insert a button here and a button here, or you can hold down Control as you're doing that, and that'll snap it to the size. And if they're not going in far enough, we can go in here to our brush depth settings and we can drop that down. And then now I can put a bunch of buttons on here. But then after I do all that work, you know, putting those buttons all over the place, I go, you know what, I want to change those. So now I have to go and change every single one of those instances. Not fun. So instead what I would do is let's go over here to a plane 3D, make polymesh 3D, geometry, reconstruct until it just goes back down to regular old plane, delete higher, B, create insert mesh new. And then we can go back to any character. We can go to this character too. And let's go ahead and undo all those nanomesh changes. So let's hit X, and let's say I want to put a button here, and I want to put a button here, and a button here. And in fact, we can just hit Control too. That'll probably make it easier later if they're all similar sized. So we got all our little buttons here. I'm going to hit Control Shift A to grab all of him with all his polygroups here. Go ahead and split hidden. And now we've got all these planes here. And then on these planes, I will go back to my Z modeler brush. And then I will insert on these. We can make them all one polygroup. We just hit Control W, make them all one polygroup. Or if they're not, you can hover over a face, insert nanomesh, all polygons. Drag out your nanomesh on all of them. Go down to your nanomesh properties. And we can say, I want to fill every single one of these with a scale or a size of 1. And then you can play with your Z offsets to see if you want to sync it more or less. And now they're all over the place. You know what? I don't need to see the plane on there, so I can turn off show placement. And now I can go into edit mesh, and we can go to solo mode here. And now I can go through here and we go like, okay, insert. Let's do insert multiple edge loops, and that'll put an edge loop right down the middle. And then I can go through here. We can say bevel, edge loop complete. And if we want to even do more, we can do inset polygroup all. We can do an inset, or we can say inset region. And as I'm dragging this out, I can tap Alt if I want to change that polygroup, and then we go QMesh polygroup all. And I can hold down Shift if I just want to move this along the surface normal. And then let's say we on this back end here we want to go bevel, edge loop complete. And then on here, we can go insert multiple edge loops, interactive elevation, and now we can just round this edge out here. We can round it out even more if we want to, give it a little lip, or we can actually push it in and round it out like this. So it's kind of up to you. We'll go ahead and push that out a little bit. And now our polygroups are a mess. Well, what I like to use is group by normals, and that's under your normal polygroup here, group by normals. And you can change that value a little bit here to see if you can grab some more of those faces. There we go. But 45 is usually a good starting point. So group by normals, and then you can do a crease polygroup, or you can just use the crease tolerance here to crease that. We can hit D for dynamic subdivisions, just to see how it's playing out, if this is what we like. We can also play around with like, okay, crease level of 2, smooth subdiv of 3, just to kind of bevel those edges a little bit. Say, okay, everything's looking good. Go out of edit mesh, and now that has been updated on your character. Let's play with that Z, not rotation. We need, actually make that 0. We need to look at Z offset. We can pull that out just a little bit. There we go. And if at any time you want to edit this mesh, it'll go right to the middle of your screen. And then we can go through here. We could be like, and we can even put more things in here. So B, I, brush inserts, excuse me, machine parts, hit M, or you can go up here and we can go like, you know what, in the middle of this thing, I want this. So scale it down. Go out of edit mesh, and now they've all been updated. Whew. Okay, just wanted to cover that. Hey everybody, thanks for showing up. Glad to be back. Like I said, it's been a while, so hopefully I remember how to use ZBrush. I think I do. Yeah, my little dog is not running around. She's sleeping on the bed, I think. Cool. Alrighty. If there's anything you want me to go over, just shout it out in the comments, and I don't really have an agenda today. I'm just trying to stay awake this week. Is it hard to merge mechanical and organic modeling in the form of a cyborg? Mechanical and organic modeling. No, in fact, that's my favorite type of modeling to do. For instance, let's give me a second. Okay, so I will link you. Here's my playlist here. So if we load up, we can load up some stuff to look at. There's my YouTube channel. So this is ZBrush 4.8. What's new is more what am I looking for? So the Sci-Fi Pistol series is very just hard surface techniques. And there's a lot more hard surface techniques we can go over too. There's some really cool stuff in there. But most of what I usually end up doing is like this concept sketching folder. Or, you know what, let's just do, go to my ArtStation. And in here, there will be a lot of breakdowns too for like organic cyborg sculpting. Here's an organic cyborg guy. Oh, this is the painter walkthrough. But it's basically the same thing. He's not really merged. She's a little bit more organic sculptory. And if you scroll down, you can see the entire making of her. And basically, it just goes from, let me embiggen this here. For instance, you just start out with a basic sketch, and then you refine that sketch, and then you just continue to refine using tools in ZBrush until you get the final sculpt, and then you go in there and you paint it up. And if you want to see the making of all this, it's all right here in that folder. So we can cover some of that too. And we have in the past, speaking of stream, Pavlovich workshop, yeah, it's been a while. If you go to my Pavlovich workshop here, if you scroll down, we did quite a bit of organic sculpting on this character that we loaded up. Let's go ahead and load her up. Organic hard surface sculpting, I should say. And we can go over some, man, I'm having a hard time streaming. There it is. ZBrush female, high res, and then helmet refine, tech suit, details. Let's just load this one up. Give me a second. There we go. So she's got some, oh, this is an old one. Oh yeah, I'm redoing the helmet, I forgot. You know what, that might even actually be better to look at. Let's go ahead and hit delete all. And I'm going to grab this one, delete all, this one, delete all. You can also do a preferences, initialize ZBrush if you want. I'm just going to manually clear this out real quick, and then we'll load up this helmet refine. I think that'll be, there we go. So this is kind of in the early ugly baby stages where we're just kind of going through and figuring out what kind of shapes we want to put together. And we can sculpt an organic cyborg type thing. And if it's the cyborg thing you're talking about, it would just be a matter of going in and sculpting the organic bits first, and then, oh, you know what would be even better? Let me see. Intro, no. We need body refine. So now that I think about that, on this guy, I forgot he was a little bit more cyborg. So he's just like, here's his goopy bits, his fleshy bits, and then, so you know, this is where the concept sketch starts out, and then you just continue to refine, and here's where he's mostly organic, and he's got some hard surface stuff trying to, you know, getting built on him, and then he's got his little trap jaw thing in there, and his arm plugged into his fleshy bit arm, and then his shoulder cap here. So if we look at him, zoom out a little bit, there we go. So on this guy in particular, turn on perspective, if we get rid of his cloth here, you can see, get rid of these straps. That, you know, you just basically sculpt the organic forms, and then you kind of block in where you want your hard surface stuff to go. And then the hard surface stuff, there's a lot of different ways you can accomplish this. And then you can hit D for dynamic subdivisions, and we can do, like, again, crease level of 2, smooth subdiv of 3 to kind of soften that transition a little bit. And then you can put like little shoulder pads on here and all sorts of fun. This is the fun stuff to kind of do. So, and you know, just like in here, you got his little trap jaw. But if you get rid of this trap jaw, you'll see he's basically just goopy creature underneath, so you can kind of mix and match those things. So we can do some of that. When I use ZSphere to retopo, I found that if I hold Shift and edit Pavlovich mode transparent, there's a radial symmetry-like effect on the embedded ZSphere, but when I click on the ZSphere, it only gives me a green circle, and I can't continue to add topology. Let's see. Let's see if we can recreate that here. We got a sphere, make polymesh 3D, append ZSphere. Scale this down, go into edit topology mode. So usually if I am doing retopology, I don't like having transparency on because I don't want to really see through my mesh. But to recreate this, ZSphere retopology, and then let's just put some topology on here really quick, like so. And I'll put a little thing over here. Okay, so we hit A, and then if we go into solo mode, you're going to see there's my mesh that I'm making. We go out of solo mode. Here we are. And then hit A to go out of the adaptive skin. Then we're in edit topology mode. If you hold down Shift in edit topology mode plus transparent, and then so I can edit topology. And then if I hold down Shift, it goes into radial symmetry, and there's a like effect on the embedded ZSphere, but when I click on it, the ZSphere, it just gives you a green circle. And then, oh, okay, so does that take you out of, let's see what that did. We're still in edit topology mode, but we clicked on this. If I hold down Alt, basically what you're doing, this thing, if you click on it, it wants to send a topology down to that, I guess. If you hit Shift, it'll send a topology button down there, and then it kind of puts you in a bad state. Hold down Alt and tap it. That'll delete that ZSphere that you kind of, if you hold down Shift and touch the ZSphere, it'll put you in a state where you're like drawing on the ZSphere in a weird way in edit topology mode. So just hold down Alt and tap that green dot, and that'll delete it. And then you can come back out here and start and continue to retopologize. But I would, if you do have a ZSphere inside of your object, you don't want to see it, I would say turn transparency off And I like to, I guess you may not be able to see this. I think I have a banner in front of it. Down here and behind the banner, I have a matte cap pearl. It's basically in here. You can choose matte cap pearl, and I drop the color down so it's nice and dark, and then I can go through here and I can just retopologize this like so. So yeah, hold down Alt and then you can hit W to move and all that good stuff. Then we can hit A, and then we have we go in here and make adaptive skin, insert, skin ZSphere, go into solo mode, and now I can QMesh polygroup all. And now we're off to the races. Now this is like, and we'll go back to matte cap gray here. You can hit D to dynamically subdivide. And then we can go in here to maybe inset polygroup all region, and then we can QMesh. Wait, we'll go to the back here too. We'll inset polygroup all region. You know what? We'll just push this back a little bit. QMesh polygroup all here. In fact, you know what? I don't like those corners, so what I'm going to do instead is we'll QMesh polygroup all. We'll put a border in here. There we go. And now I can just kind of start modeling. Let's say increase level of 3, smooth to 4. Something like that. Does that make sense? Just hold down Alt and delete the dot you pick on it. Cool. Alrighty. So let's talk a little bit about cybernetic organic modeling and maybe just getting to refining techniques. Let me think. There's a lot of different ways we can go about it. My knee-jerk reaction whenever I just want to get my ideas out, for instance, let's start with our trusty. Let's find a decent base mesh here. So we'll go to streaming, ZBrush female. We'll go all the way back to number 1. Let's see what we got in here. Oh, not that far. That was anatomy. Let's start with TechSuit. There we go. Okay, this is base female. We'll go ahead and delete other, and that'll give us just a base mesh to work on. And now what we can do is I can duplicate this off, and we'll go in here to our inflate. That's under your deformations menu. We'll inflate that -1. And now when I start sculpting on this one, go out of solo mode, I can start sculpting on this one, and now I can just start, you know, integrating or doing something cool with her. Let's see, preferences, edit, turn off align cursor to surface here. So now we can start sculpting. Now, if I'm going to do something cybernetic, or there's she has parts of her that are replaced, say her arm or something, we can just go ahead and, you know, I like to keep one around just for reference to make sure that it is what I want, but I can go through here and I can hide temporarily. I can just hide a piece of her, so it's like, you know what, I want to replace this arm right here on both sides. And now I can go through here and I can go, you know what, let's go ahead and mask. Let's go hold down Control, go to Mask Lasso, and we can invert that, and we can go ahead and do an inflate here. And now I can just start sculpting and doing like concept sculpty stuff. Now it's not going to be pretty. Let's turn off project, turn off blur, hit Dynamesh. Let's raise that resolution just a bit here. Like this. And if that hand is really borked, all I need to do is I can delete that hand, and then I can take this original we have. I didn't get rid of anything. Duplicate it off, go into solo mode, hold down Control Shift, and I'm going to steal this hand temporarily, and then we'll delete hidden. Oops, let's go delete lower, delete hidden, close holes, mirror and weld, and I can even Dynamesh this if I want to. The hand I'm probably going to want to Dynamesh a little bit higher than I normally would, just so I don't get the webbing between the fingers. And now I've got a mechanical hand. I can go through here and start doing stuff like beep, boop, beep. I want this to be cut right here, and then I want to put maybe big old knuckles in here. And again, I'm just getting a feel for what kind of character I want to create, what I want it to look like. If I don't even want it to have necessarily human hands, I can go through here. I can say, let's have a little bit of fun with this. I'm going to go through here, and I'm going to say you are deleted, and then Dynamesh, and then you are masked, and then we'll go to Unmask Mesh Center here. Yes, we're going across the axis. There we go. And I can say, okay, I'll move you over, we'll scale you out. Let's go ahead and turn on LSIM so we can scale this out along its local axis here. And we can control drag and go in here with our clay brush, and we can say, you know what, let's give it some thicker fingers. And once we get to the real hard edge modeling where it's like, okay, I'm going to replace these fingers with like actual cybernetic fingers, that's when we can go through and start replacing all of these fingers with the same one. You could even do, like we showed at the beginning, an insert mesh or a NanoMesh or an ArrayMesh, where you can just do that really quickly. Let's go ahead and fatten this one up too. We'll go in here with our H-polish brush, and we'll kind of flatten these out. And if you want to start getting a feel for how these shapes might start working, you can go through here and even grab, say, a cylinder and kind of push these in. And you can even start doing your hard surface modeling if you know that, you know, I want to articulate along this axis, or probably more realistically along this axis, so you can rotate like a little hinge joint here, and then we can just control drag these off. And that's also the cool thing about getting rid of one of your fingers, is that's less fingers you have to make. We'll go ahead and scale this down, and we'll drag this over here. Like so. Now, if I control drag again, it's going to dynamesh those together, which is okay if I'm just trying to like get a feel for what I'm making, but it might be a little bit destructive, so I can go ahead and we'll just grab those, control shift select those, and those can be separate, and then we can just go ahead and do a crease dynamic. There we go. So now as those are sitting there, I can now work around them, and I can go, okay, now what do I want this to look like? Well, I'm running out of resolution, so I'm going to raise that just a little bit. And now we can go through here. Let's crank up our Z intensity on our standard brush. We'll tap lazy radius up, and then we'll tap L to turn it off. And now we can just go through here and start kind of playing around with like, okay, so this is where a joint articulation point is. These are a little big, so I probably want to scale them down quite a bit. And if I want to move these things around, if I go into my move brush and we go, okay, let's turn on auto masking, and we'll say, if you turn on topological, now you can make a really big move brush and you can just move them around individually. Alternatively, you could say give them, you could do an auto groups under your polygroup menu. We'll do a quick mirror and weld across the x-axis. Auto groups is under polygroup menu. Mirror and weld is under geometry modify topology. Mirror and weld. And the reason I do that is if you auto groups anything, it's going to do polygroups different on either side. So I just do a quick mirror and weld across the x-axis to make them the same. And then if you want to move them around individually, you can make a big brush size and move them around, or alternatively, you could make it a really small brush size, and then we'll go into move brush. Oh, mask by polygroups is another thing you want to use. So mask by polygroups will use just move just polygroups with topological off, or you can have topological on and move them around, or you can make a really small brush size, and you should be able to move this around, but it's not. It's having a hard, there we go. So if you make a brush size of 1, let's turn topological off. Brush size of 1, topological, should move these things around, but it's kind of snapping it to an axis for some reason. Anyway, also what you can do if you want to scale these individually, you can control tap if they have separate polygroups, and then you can go to go to unmasked mesh center. And now you can scale these down individually, so we can go, okay, you get scaled, and then you get scaled, and then you get scaled, and then you get scaled, like so. Cool. Thanks for showing up, everybody. Yeah, and I always get dinged on talking fast, but the reason I talk fast is because usually what I'm saying is super boring, and it's stuff I say all day long, which is like mirror and weld, geometry, modify topology, weld points, or whatever. Once you've said that 10,000 times, you start saying it really fast. It starts getting like mentally and physically exhausting to keep saying that stuff over and over again. But then again, it's like, okay, while I'm on here, if I just go through this custom menu I have all the time and don't explain anything, you know, I'll get dinged for not explaining stuff. So I try and do both, but it is It is very trying. Anyway, this is a weird hand, but you know, it's a good start, I suppose. And then you can go through here and you can kind of start flattening this thing out, and you're just giving indications. Let's get our Damien standard brush. We'll keep raising this resolution up. There we go. So here is like, okay, we're going to go ahead and just cut across here. Let's go into solo mode here. And you know what? I want to see the joints, but I don't want to see the rest of this crap. So we're going to go ahead and say, hold down Shift, and then turn everything off. We'll touch the nameplate, then turn those joints on, and now we're just looking at these two. So now we can go through here, we can like cut across here. And then we're going to have one, or you know, we can even just leave it at that if they have like, these are going to be a little less, like, I don't know, less joints in there to kind of articulate. You don't have to give them perfectly human joints. We can just do one. But if you want to put another one in there, you just put another, you can do another round of these things just really quickly. You can hold down W and then Control drag these down, position them in here, and then just go through here again. And let's go ahead and do another auto groups, mirror and weld. Move these things around, and then W, Control Tap, and we'll scale these ones down a little bit more. So you shouldn't feel like, well, I don't want to do it because it's too much work. It's not difficult or time consuming to do. It's just a decision that you need to make. Everything's fast to do in ZBrush. Wow, that's not true. But well, you know what? Maybe it is true. If there's something in ZBrush I don't know how to do fast, it's probably me not thinking of an elegant enough solution. So we can go through here, and we can say, okay, we'll build this up along the back, and then we'll go to the back here. We'll cut this across. Now, you might be saying, you know, how do you go from this to something that doesn't look like dog poop? And this is just where you start. You start here just to make sure that when you start modeling it for real, that you have everything in place that you want to make. So we'll go through here, we'll say, okay, this is where I want it to go, and then you're always looking for points of articulation so the animators don't yell at you. So when they go to weight something or bind something or rig something, they can always look at your model and go, okay, if you, for example, let's go to Brush, Insert, Model Toolkit. We'll hit M. We'll get a metal bar, and we'll go ahead and just mask this out here. If we put a bar right across here, they go, okay, animation, have fun. And then they go, well, you know, we are going to have to bend this wrist eventually, so this is going to look really awkward, you know, bending a metal bar during the animations, especially if you're first-person shooter and your hand's right here. So don't do that if you can help it. Delete hidden. So we'll go through here and we'll say, and even when we start weighting this stuff to a lower res mesh, if you just put a line in here, sometimes it's even better to go ahead. Let's go into our clay buildup. We'll hold down Alt, and we'll give it, you know, if it's got to be really bendy in there, we can go through here and we can say, let's go ahead and put a little, give it some even more areas to go. So we can give it a little bit more breathing room in here, or even in here. If you're going to be articulating this a bunch, like your thumb can go all the way around and back and forth, you want to make sure, and just like your real thumb does, you've got a bunch, you got this fat pad in here and this webbing between here, so you could even back this off even more. Say, okay, you are hard surface, and then all of this in here can be nice, and let's hold down Shift. I'm going to use Smooth Stronger. You guys know about Smooth Stronger. If you don't, I always feel bad. Brush, go over here. Anybody who's watched this channel before is going to be like, Mike, really? We're going to do this again? Smooth Stronger. You can choose Smooth Stronger, and you can even put that in your startup brushes, so when you hold down Shift, you can always grab Smooth Stronger. Smooth Stronger, all it's doing is under your brush menu at the very bottom, you have Smooth Brush Modifiers, and you have this Weighted Smooth mode. It's set to 1 on Smooth Stronger, which is, you can see as we hover over this, that's stronger. If you hold down Control, it'll give you even more information on the different smoothing modes. And then you can go in here and you can smooth the hell out of your objects. If you don't want to smooth that much, you can hold down Shift, drop that Z intensity down, and then you can smooth less strong. So I always like to cover that. So then we'll go ahead, put this in here, and now this will be extra spongy, and you can indicate that by just putting some rubbery stuff in here. And again, we will remake this just so it looks good, but first we need to make sure what we're making is what we're looking to make here. And then along the back of the hand here, you know, your metacarpals don't really move that much, so you can probably get away with this being just a hard surface. We could even make it look like a little Mickey Mouse glove if we want to. But I don't want to get sued, so we'll get rid of that. And then we'll you can put little joints in here, but we'll go ahead and just give a little bit more space in between these. Instead of just repeating this pattern up, we'll just go ahead and just knock some space in between here. And then as these things bend, we need even more space on the bottom side here. So this is where the fat pads of your hands would end up. And if you look at your hands, they got the little fat pad, and then as you crease them, they turn into little wedges like this. You know, so you can kind of mimic that here. And if you want to make these fattier, yeah, you can start sculpting on here. You're going to see, oh, it's sculpted through, and then I got this. Always make sure that you go into your brushes, and then you go in here to auto masking, turn on backface, and now it won't sculpt through your mesh. Now, if you're constantly having to go in here and go to clay, turn on backface masking, if you're always going to want to have backface masking for all of your brushes, have your clay brush selected, go to brush, save as, and then I want to say under, let's see if I remember where to put this. If you put it in C, Program Files, Pixel Gizmo 4R8, you can go to ZBrushes, and that'll store it in your Lightbox. If you go to Z Startup, Brush Presets, that'll save a new clay brush in there. And then if you go to Z Data, Brush Presets, you're going to see the clay brush in here. So if you save over this clay brush with any new settings, every time you load up ZBrush, your clay brush, not a new one you bring in, will have those settings available to you. So do that. Mark asks, is your custom menu available anywhere? It'd be interesting to see what you have. Yeah, let me show you where that is. So let's go to, sorry. Let's see here and here. So first, if you go to my QBrush page, I'm not trying to sell you anything. It's all free. Go all the way to the very bottom here. There's an intro to ZBrush files. And this, you can just download the custom menu and hotkeys for ZBrush 4R8. And then, or you can go to my QBrush page here, and you can get it for free there. I think it's towards the bottom. Here we go. Intro to ZBrush files. Also, on my YouTube channel, if you want to set up your own, go to the, you can find information about this everywhere, but also you can go to my Intro to ZBrush Part 2 YouTube, and you can see custom hotkeys, custom interface, custom menu. So you can kind of, as you're working, you can kind of set up all the custom stuff you use all the time, or multiple custom menus, and you can kind of set them up as a marking menu. You can also change your interface a lot so that you can have stuff you use all the time. You can throw it up here and get rid of stuff. I've got rid of a lot of things over here I never use, and then just to kind of make these, just to make it a little bit less cluttered. I try and keep it vanilla because I do a lot of demos and teaching, so I don't want to like overhaul my entire interface too much. But I don't mind using a custom menu because it's kind of self-contained and all that stuff. But yeah, you can definitely check that out. Anyway, oh yeah, so we were looking through here the comments here. Gizmo need to be installed, or 4R8 already has it? No, 4R8 has it by default. Speaking of, if you want to do more info on the Gizmo here, if you go to the ZBrush 4R8 What's New, the first 4 videos are all about that Gizmo. So you can, sorry, I'm going to keep spamming you guys with links. You can check that out. Or you can go to Pixelogic Classroom, and they go over it too. But while I'm standing here, you can ask me questions on those videos because I made them. There we go. Got a weirdo little metallic hand here. And on the back here, and even on this whole back side, you gotta ask, okay, what kind of character is this? What is she going to use these hands for? Is this for like a scientific endeavor? Is she made out of cast iron? And is she rusty? Is she like farm equipment? Is she scientific equipment? And that'll kind of dictate how this looks as well. And a lot of times what you'll see is like maybe a hard edge up here, and then, you know, just like the tendons and the hard bones and stuff of your metacarpals. And then on the bottom here, sometimes you'll see this would all just be organic-y stuff. It'll just be fatty grabber stuff. If you don't want to do that, you know, feel free to make this whatever you want. Or do both. You can always save off variants. You know, you can actually just duplicate this off and be like, okay, I'm going to have one that's hard panel, and then on this one in here, I want it to be a little softer in here. There we go. Clay brush. Then we go in here with our Damien standard. We can say, you know, maybe we got some. You can just make it follow, generally speaking, the human areas where you know, have those fatty pads and the muscle buildup and stuff like that. And then through here, I guess I would just fudge this a little bit. There we go, something like that. You can try both. And then you go here, do I like this one? Do I like this one? Do I like both? Do I like neither? And kind of like this one better. Let's delete that one. There we go. Yeah, that's a good point. So Pro4210 says, it took him a while to figure out backface masking is set per brush, and it is a little bit confusing in here. So under auto masking, mask by polygroups is global. So when you have this on, every brush. However, everything in this area is per brush. So yeah, set it per brush and then save it. And then every time you load up ZBrush, it'll be just how you like it. Cool. And Ox says that, yeah, you can make a button in your interface so you can see if it's on or off or not, which is another excellent thing. So it's more of just a visual thing. So you can, and I do that too on my lazy radius here. I'll use that a little bit. I'll open my custom menu and just see if lazy radius is on or not. Sometimes I'm trying to think what else I might use that for. Double I use all the time to make sure that that's off usually, unless I need it on for some specific reason. Cool. Hey everybody, thanks for showing up. Fuyu says, Michael, how did you get into ZBrush 3D and art? So I guess I can sculpt while I do that. So let's go ahead and, you know, we'll refine this a little bit. So as I talk. So in 3D, oh boy. So if I go way back, I watched Jurassic Park, the making of, and I was like, oh my God, that 3D is killer, dude. So, and this was way back when, I mean, God, before I even got into 3D, I guess Nintendo 64 was a big deal. 3D wasn't. It was kind of making video games worse at the time. I remember Mortal Kombat took quite a plunge. It had this beautiful 2D art, and then everything went to 3D and like Tekken and stuff, and it all looked really bad. Or like Virtua Racer was another one where it's like, hey, we're doing 3D, and it was like, this looks terrible. What are we doing? But it was the infancy of 3D. But what really got me to 3D was probably more movies at the time, because yeah, the 3D in video games was not doing it for me. But then I went to Texas State Technical College in Waco, and I basically got a degree in Photoshop, which wasn't a bad thing. It was a good place to kind of start and get my feet wet for like how computers work. This was back when the computers weren't new, but they were still in their infancy. If you wanted to do 3D art at the time, you had to get like these SGI machines that were like $15,000 or $10,000, $15,000, $20,000, and they had up to 512 meg of RAM and 100 gig of hard drive space, and so the entry level for 3D art was still pretty high. And then while I was in college in Waco, things started to get a little bit cheaper, so your personal computer could actually run Maya, run 3D Studio Max, run Softimage, Lightwave, or whatever they called it back then. And so you didn't need that gigantic barrier to entry on the hardware side anymore, which was nice. And then from there, I went to Ringling College. Ringling School of Art and Design is what it was called when I went there, but now they call it Ringling College. And I got my degree in computer animation. My major was computer animation. This was before they had a game component to their curriculum. And let's go here with our H-polish brush. And then I went through their curriculum and I graduated. And I learned, that's when I started using ZBrush. ZBrush 2.5 was out, and the faculty had no idea what ZBrush was. And they're like, we're not supporting this. We don't know what it is, which is fair. I understand that. You can't support every new thing that comes out in our industry because something new comes out literally every day. So I just kind of started using it on my own. I went ahead and way back then, I bought a license. I was like, there's no way I'm going back to regular old just box modeling for everything. I saw a movie of somebody modeling this deep sea fish, and they were just masking and pulling things out and just making something, as opposed to just doing the old the old method, which is just, box modeling the hell out of everything, which isn't a bad way to do it. It's a little bit much sometimes, especially if you just want to kind of get an idea out. So I saw that, and I was like, okay, this will be a good investment. So I bought a license, and I haven't paid for that license again. I just gotten free upgrades since then. And then, 3.1 came out while I was still in college at Ringling, and then went into EA Tiburon, where I worked on football games. And then I went to Sony Online Entertainment, which is now Daybreak, and worked on DC Universe Online. Then I went to Certain Affinity and worked on Call of Duty, Halo, Doom, Mafia, stuff like that. And now I'm working on another cool game that hopefully I'll be able to talk about soon. We're doing a lot of really cool, fun stuff on it. So hopefully I'll be able to show you guys some of that sometime. Maybe even stream a little bit of it. We'll see. We'll see how that goes. All right, so if we want to go ahead and start making this for real, and feel free to, even at this stage, we can start figuring some more stuff out. You don't have to stop here and go, okay, now let me go ahead and rebuild this. It's like, okay, let's go ahead and break this up and see that it still reads, or if there's any more articulation points we want to put in here. So let's go ahead and hold down Control-Shift, and we'll go into Select Lasso. And you know what? While I'm working on a hand, I don't need to know that the other hand is over on the other side. I'm aware of that. So I'm going to go ahead and just get rid of this. Delete hidden. I'm going to Alt-Tap these little joints here, and then we'll turn off X symmetry, and we'll just delete hidden out of those. So we can just work on one side. We don't need another thing floating in the background there. And then we'll Alt-Tap this, and we'll say, okay, these fingers have got to go. So I'm going to get rid of their visibility, and they don't have to go. They just can't stay here. I'll invert that visibility, and then I can just invert this so we can stay behind. There we go. Let me go ahead and split those off. And now I can work on these fingers individually. In fact, if I want to, I can just refine one of these fingers. Let's go ahead and refine this middle finger here. Go ahead and split that off. That's under your Subtool split menu. We can Dynamesh this, and now I can just work on this individually, and I can even crank up that resolution so we can start maybe playing around with this a little bit more. So this can almost be maybe nothing in here. We'll go in with our clay brush. We can say, okay, let's be a little bit nicer here. So we can go, okay, we want this to come up and over. And also, I'm going to be kind of all over the place. You don't want to get too caught up in the details. You want to go like, hey, how is this working all over the place? So we need to make the hands bigger or smaller. Is it working with the rest of the design? And if we want to also in here, we can say, you know what, I want to work on these arms separately. So split hidden. Go ahead and Dynamesh these. We can go ahead and inflate these a little bit. Now on here, if I'm going to make this like very obviously like farm equipment or something, let's go ahead and Dynamesh this. You can go in here and be like, okay, I want to make this a cylinder and this a cylinder, and then clay build up. Let's go ahead and do auto masking, backface masking on. You know, build this up a little bit here. So you can kind of start indicating where you might want stuff to go. But it might be easier just to go in here, even if you're just doing primitives. You can grab a cylinder here. And so when you pull out an insert mesh and you pull back in, it'll skinny it out for you. So you can use that to kind of dial in the width and length of your object. It's a feature and a good one at that. So we kind of just dial this in here. We can go ahead and split mask points. And now that that's already blocked in, I don't need any of this concepty stuff here, so we can just delete that. And now this will be my stand-in for where this piece goes. You can scale it in, and let's go ahead and reset that gizmo. Hit W, and then hold down Alt. And now we can just scale it in from this point, and we can shoot it back up there, like so. And then depending on what you want this, oops, I'm also going to turn off Dynamesh properties for that so I don't accidentally hit it. And now through here we can go ahead and do like insert single edge loop. We can go ahead and clean this up a little bit. So we can go, if we wanted to go, let's say we want this thing, let's say we want it to be a little bit more organic. This is kind of a cool look for something like farm equipment where it's like linear actuators and gears and anything mechanical that needs to happen is on a very like linear plane. If you want to kind of play with that a little bit, we can go like do a little bit more thick to thin. So we can go ahead and say we want to go thick through here and then thin through here. Then we can go to insert multiple edge loops with interactive elevation. We can kind of bulge this out a little bit here. So we can go thick to thin. And then we can go back to insert single edge loop. And we can cap both these off. And we can go, let's do polygroup, poly loop. And we'll do an inset, polygroup all, and then again we'll just grab this Q mesh and we'll just push this back. And then, I don't know, play with that however you want. And you can set up your polygroups however you'd like. And then through here, we can add more cylinders through there, or you can go into your, let's go into our comma key here, brush, hard surface kit bash library. And we'll say, we got any cool structural components here? Thin. Like what kind of structural components we want to work with here. And these are just a collection of stuff I bought off Gumroad. Sometimes it's free, sometimes it's not. You can just buy the stuff. And this isn't something I would like ship. I wouldn't be like, hey, I made this. But it's a good starting point for stuff I'm going to end up rebuilding anyway, so we can split mask points off. And you know, this thing here, this is just placeholder for length really, so I can just go ahead and delete that. And now we can stick this in here. And then it's like, okay, what kind of joint in here? So I want a hinge joint. So let's go back to our brushes here and we can look at our joints hinge. And we can peruse through the hinge joints that we have here. So if we want one that can kind of rotate, it doesn't have to be like a human hinge joint if you don't want to. Like it only moves in this direction because it also has to rotate. Your forearm rotates as well. So we can do hinge bracket, hinge perpendicular, hinge double. I think this one will work. So I'll tap this one. We can put this hinge right here. And now, you know what, let's see if we can't. I'm going to hold down Alt and pull this off. And what it's going to do, if I split masked points and I turn off double, you're going to see it's inverted. I'm just going to flip those normals. And that was just so I could insert it on the other side. So now I can say you squish a little bit for me. So we can add a little bit more room for this hinge joint, which needs to go in the elbow area. And now if we go into solo mode here, now we have an elbow. Hold down Alt. Let's go to unmesh my center. And now this thing here can rotate like this. And then this thing can rotate like, hold on. Give me a second. Let's go ahead and do auto groups. And then on this thing here, we can say you. So now this thing rotates like this. Let's set this a little bit better. There we go. You rotate like this, and then you rotate like this. And now between those two, you're getting quite a bit of range of motion in there. So now if I want to move both of these at the same time to kind of match that angle a little bit better, what we can do is we can hit W, move multiple subtools, hold down Control Shift, and now we can just hold down Control Shift and tap those two subtools, and now I can rotate both of these, move and rotate both of these at the same time, like so. And then we can hold down Control Shift and drag to unmark all of those, and then we turn that off. Again, more info on that's on my, right here, still have it up. Go to my Intro to ZBrush for 8, what's new, and I think video 4 is move multiple. Thanks for showing up, everybody. Cool, glad you're getting into ZBrush, Mark. It's pretty fun. I use all the 3D programs, but ZBrush is my crutch just because I can have a little bit more fun in it than I tend to. When I use other 3D programs, it's a little bit more production oriented. Not quite as freeing, I guess I should say. So I like to use ZBrush just because it's fun to use. They set it up for the artist as opposed to the production artist, which is liberating in a lot of ways. Let's see what else we got in here. Let's see if there's any more structural components we can kind of pull in here. Any other weirdo things? We can kind of do like a radius and ulna type thing maybe. Plug this in. This can go down to a wrist joint. Now the wrist joint is just more, it can go side to side a little bit. You can kind of fudge that kind of movement just in the weighting of your object, really. Let's go ahead and set this here. And then, yeah, we can get rid of this. So we'll say this and this can go. And delete hidden. Go ahead and DynaMesh this back up. Now, if you want to put another hinge joint in there, this one can just be a simple hinge. Hinge and pivot. That'll work. Now this is like a double hinge, so it would hinge here and then also hinge here. So maybe that wouldn't work that well. Let's see if we can find one that's just like a flat hinge. I think they're up here somewhere. And I don't really use these this much, so I am kind of, yeah, it'll work. And again, it doesn't have to be anything fancy. It can just be something as simple as this. And we can always rearrange these later, or we can do two. Let's do one here, and then Control Drag, do one here. And let's go ahead and split those off. I'm going to grab a little piece, Control Shift A, split hidden, rotate. Okay, so we've got these. And then let's go ahead and move these out as well. So I'm going to take this, I'm going to hold down, let's do a group by normals. Or you know what, we don't need to do that. We'll do Q Mesh, flat island, and then as we, no, not flat island, flat. I just want pat, flat. Maybe facing front all? No. In front? There we go. Use in front, you can hold down shift and you can just pull along that surface normal. So we can kind of lengthen that up a little bit here. So we can put this where the wrist is going to go, and then we can just pull both of these back. And then through here, we can put in, we can just put in a cylinder if you want to get fancy. We can see if we have, I think we got in brushes, we have coupling in here. So you can be like, oh, let's put in something super duper. Split mask points. Pop this in here, and then unmatched mesh center. Pull this up. And again, this is for just kind of making decisions, seeing what we like, what we don't like. Let's go ahead and move multiple again. Hold Control Shift. And we'll grab all these. W, turn that off. Cool. How did you reset that gizmo? So when you're using the gizmo, we can do a little quick gizmo overview here. Let's talk gizmo talk. So for example, we have all these complex shapes in here, like this, oops, I accidentally hit DynaMesh on there. So we have this complex shape in here, and let's say I want to move along this, the long axis of this. Technically, maybe it's a short axis, I don't know. On a cylinder, I think it'd be the short axis. So if I can hold down as I touch Alt, it's turning this lock on and off. So when it's locked and you don't hold down Alt, it's just going to move your object. If you hold down Alt, that's when you can start moving this gizmo around. So you can go through here and you can kind of just move this gizmo into place. Now, the shortcut to that is if I want to move this to the unmasked mesh center, I can hold down Alt and click this little teardrop, and that goes to the unmasked mesh center. And of course, that's going to be like if I hover over this one and we go to mask polygroup all, I can just mask this polygroup. And now I can invert that mask by control tapping out here, and then I can hold down Alt and go to Unmasked Mesh Center, and it goes to the unmasked center portion, which is right along that surface there. Now it gets a little bit tricky in here. If I hold down Alt and do this little reset orientation, that'll reset it to the world X, Y, and Z axis. So if I turn on the floor here, you know, we're Z forward, so there's the floor down there. It's resetting it to the world orientation, which is nice. Sometimes if I wanted to move this like straight forward or straight back. However, probably I want to move it along the surface normal. So what I can do is I can hold down Alt and I can tap on any surface and that will set it along the surface normal. So now I can just move it perfectly in line with that. What else we got in here? Mesh axis, you can set that back to the home if you hold down Alt and hit that home key. I don't use that very often, but you can set it to the middle of your world if you need to. This little sticky mode I'll use sometimes if I want to make copies of this. If I want to make a bunch of copies of these things, I can turn on sticky and then I can hold down control and drag one out, and then it snaps it back to the original location. So now if I hit 1, it'll just go ahead and keep making copies of that at the exact same distance away. 1 is just replay last, which I thought was under stroke. My brain's already starting to go. How am I already tired? I just woke up. What is up with that? Modifiers. Replay last is 1. Replay last relative is shift 1, I think. There's my dog. People are going to work and she's yelling at them. Yeah, it's not bad. Yeah, anything in here that's ZBrush oriented. I mean, that's the fun thing about ZBrush is it's so fast and easy. So like if I want to move along the surface normal of this object, I'm just going to go in here, tap Alt to orient it, and then hold down Alt and shoot it right to the middle, and now I can just scale from the middle along its normal axis there. Like so. But then again, so we do have like a little concept of hand down here, and from back here, it's actually fine. In fact, if we go, here's a really good, I did a GDC presentation long time ago. But if you want to see this breakdown a little bit better, I guess that'd be this one. So even, and this is pretty old. This is actually way before ZModeler. This might have been before. No, I guess we had trim. We had hard surface brushes, but no Booleans or anything like that. So now this helmet right here was done just with sculpting, but it started out as large this. It starts out as just this right here. It's just a nothing sculpt just to kind of see where I want my shapes to go. And then you just go in here and you refine a little bit. You break apart pieces and you start refining them separately. And then you go through here and you start rebuilding stuff as needed using ZModeler, ZRemesher, just box modeling and like Boolean if you want to. And then eventually, and then you'll insert curve brushes down here. In fact, speaking of that, let's have a little bit of fun with that. So in case y'all missed it, my Texas is slipping out. Let's go to append a Z-sphere. And we'll hit, we'll grab the Z-sphere, we'll hit E, X, and we'll just scale this down. So we have X turned on, so it's X symmetrical across the X axis here. We'll turn on transparent so we can see where it is. And we can hit E, and we can hit Q, and we can start drawing off. As we're drawing off, you're seeing it snapping to our surface, which is a really cool feature. We can also just hit W, and we'll scale this down a little bit more. So one way, we'll show you a couple ways to do this. So one way you can kind of put wires in here is, and I like using Z-spheres for wires because, number one, you can hold down Shift, and that will, and also make your draw size small, so you can just move one of these Z-spheres around at a time. When you hold down, when you go into draw mode, and you hold down Shift, it'll snap to the previously sized so you can keep them nice and what's the word I'm looking for? Consistent. And then you so you can hit W, you can move, you can hit, let's go to solo mode here. You can hit E if you want to scale. You can scale all the children, or you can scale the joints individually. Same thing with rotate. You can rotate an individual joint, or you can rotate all the way down the X, or all the way down the chain. Same thing as move. You can move down the chain, or you can move an individual joint. It's up to you. And with this power, you are now able to just quickly go through here and move around. Now, you don't have to do one by one. You can say, you know what, I want this one to end up somewhere in here on this side, and then you can hit Q and you can just put another Z-sphere here and Q and another Z-sphere here, Q and another Z-sphere here, and then just move. You can start moving these things around like this. So let's say this goes through here. Let's say it goes around, up and around, and this one actually goes back through this little hole right here. Put another one here, and let's say it goes down here, and then into like the palm, somewhere like that. So this is one wire. We can make multiple wires. I'll show you that in just a second, but let's say we want to stick with this wire. So if I want to use this wire, if I hit A, that's going to make our adaptive skin. So let's go down here with the Z-sphere selected. You're going to see this menu is usually empty, except when I have a Z-sphere selected. We can go down here to adaptive skin, and we say preview, and right now it's previewing a Dynamesh resolution mode. If we turn that down to 0, and then we hit A, and then A again, this goes into normal reskin mode, and you've turned that density down to 1. That'll give you the lowest density mesh right here. So I think this will work fine. You can go hit A to go out of that adaptive skin mode, and then you can go through here and you can add more points if you want to kind of round these things out, but I'll show you a trick around that in just a second. So we hit A, and now we've got these this wire going all over the place, right? Let's say, oh, I want that wire to be thinner, or I want that wire to be something different. I got you covered. So what we can do is we can say, okay, you know what? This is that adaptive skin is fine. Make adaptive skin, and nothing changed. You can go in here and you can like sculpt on this thing if you want to, but then when you go out of adaptive skin mode and bring it back, it'll still be sculpted. Sometimes it'll yell at you, like, do you want to keep your sculpting changes, stuff like that. Maybe if I go back here and move like that, I guess it will keep it. So you can sculpt in here on your adaptive skin and it'll keep it, but when you hit make adaptive skin, it puts out this little skin Z-sphere just kind of hanging out in your tool palette area, I guess. So we'll go back to what we were working on. Go to append the skin Z-sphere. And now this Z-sphere here, we can keep it around if we want to use it more, but if I'm done with it, I can just hit delete, and now we've got our skin Z-sphere on there. Make sure you hit X to go across X symmetry. Oh, no, it does it now. So we're across X symmetry here, so we can just go through here and we can move this little wire around that we have. So if we go into solo mode, you're going to see we have a bunch of polygroups. I don't need this middle one anymore. That was just kind of a placeholder, so we can select it and then delete hidden. Whoops. And then down here, you're going to see it kind of goes to a rounded cap. I want that just to go to an empty, hold on, there you go. I want this to go just to an empty area, so I'm going to get rid of that, delete hidden. So now I've got a wire here. So let's say I want this wire to be smoother. So what we can do is we can go to polish by, well, there's a lot of deformations in here you can do. I usually just do polish by features, but if I do polish by features now, every single one of these polygroup borders is a feature. So if I polish by features, it's going to want to keep them hard surface, which kind of gives it a kind of a cool little sausage thing going there. I can hit Control W, make it all one feature, or I can just go in here to like polish, and then that'll polish and kind of smooth those transitions here. So if I undo those and then we just do a little bit of polish there, there we go. That'll kind of smooth those out. So there's that, and now we can go through here. If we want to make it thinner, we can go through here and say, okay, I want to inflate this or deflate this, like so. It's like make it a little bit thinner maybe. And you can always cap these ends whenever you'd like. So at any point you can go here, there's Z modeler and close convex hole and be like, boom, there you go. But I like to leave them open just so, and you can also, instead of inflating and deflating, go through here if it's all one polygroup, QMesh, or just QMesh all polygons. And then as you pull out and in, you can just move right along that surface normal holding down shift, and that'll make it thicker or thinner as well. One way, but now let's say, and you know, have fun with this. Have fun. Let's go here. Let's say we wanted like polygroup, polyloop. And you know what? If I don't want it to be part of this mesh, I mean, I can go through here and be like, okay, this is going to have like a little, oops, let's do QMesh polygroup all. Or you know what? I like to I do an inset first. I like doing a little inset, and then I like doing a QMesh, and I just pull this out just to give me a little bit of that wiggle room. So you can go ahead and do this. You can hit D, and it'll give you a dynamic preview, and you can like increase by polygroups and increase level of 2 and smooth to 3. So you can start getting that kind of look for like any housing and stuff. But you can also, if you want to just like make addendum, sometimes it's useful to like duplicate this off. And then we can go in here and we can say, I want polygroup, I want you, and you, and then you, and you. Isolate these, delete hidden, and now with these separate, you can just go through here and you can QMesh these out. Also, another thing I like to do is I do like to have these capped. I mean, you can do this, but then you end up with thin meshes. I mean, that's technically more correct, so feel free to keep that. But alternatively, you could also just close these holes off. And you can also just run a close holes operation under geometry modified topology, but then it gives you that kind of geo, that concave hole face fill. So I just like to cap those off. And now I can go through here, QMesh, polygroup all, and then I can just use shift, QMesh, polygroup all. Let's hit. Did that do something weird? Huh, it kept those same polygroups. Not a big deal. All we got to do, group by normals, max angle 45. There we go, group by normals, and then just do a quick mirror and weld. And now we can do QMesh polygroup all, hold down shift, and it'll go right across there. Or like we did before. There we go. Sorry about that. And we can move these things out. We can also make these the same polygroup if we want to. Control W. And now we can QMesh these at the same time, and we can alt paint this. We can pop this out. And again, like we did before, we can just, and you know what, let's grab that whole top piece here. We'll pull this out. Or, you know what, let's do that here, and then we can slide this edge back here. And you know what, let's go ahead and grab these, and we'll pull this up, and then we'll pull this up again. And then we'll mark these ones, and we'll just pull through. And now we've got like a little thing we can grab. And then even in here, we can just do a slide edge like this on this wire here. So now we'll do a crease tolerance, pretty high. We can hit D, and that'll just give us like a little wire addendum we can put on there. But let's say we want to swap this wire out. How are we doing on time? Oh, we still got some time. We don't like this wire, or if we do, it's an okay wire, and you can keep detailing this if you want to. Inserting multiple edge loops. Let me see if I can do this. Let's say we want to polygroup topological 3 sides. I know you can do like checker, polygroup all checker. You can do that, and then you can do like inset, polygroup all, each poly. No. Inset, polygroup all, wouldn't be a region, it would be each poly, but it's doing every polygon. Inset, polygroup all. Let me think. Polygroup all, poly order. Now I give them all different. Topological. Oh, wait. Relative +1. You can see I don't really use this all that much. 3 sides? That could work. And we'll do inset polygroup all region this time. So we can go through and we can kind of inset these different regions here. And it kind of breaks it up along the details here, and then we can just do like a QMesh polygroup all. We can start detailing this thing up however we want. This is kind of doing not something I would necessarily do. Let's do Shift D, delete hidden. There we go. So you can kind of start detailing it up any way you'd like. Kind of gives it like a sci-fi feel. Or if you wanted to go just a little bit more plain Jane, let's say we just want to go through here and do like polygroup, polyloop, U, and then we can do like an inset, and then we can do like a Q mesh, pull these out, or you can Q mesh them in. What am I looking for here? Delete hidden, there you go. That kind of thing. But having said all that, let's undo that. So we're just back to our regular mesh that we made. So let's say I want to swap this out completely with something else. We got holes on the side. Yeah. So you might remember, instead of using ZSpheres, we go to brush curve. Let's do brush insert. Any of these will work fine. We can go to insert curve brush here. We can choose bike chains or vines, or you can use this hose if you want to. So let's say we really like this hose, but we want this hose to follow that wire we already made. So you can, if you want to, you can try going through here and being like, can we just use this as a base? And you can do that. It'll kind of follow it-ish. But a better method would be to go along this curve here. This will be the manual way. You can do polyloop, and let's go to the back side here. So here, make this one polygroup, and then this one another polygroup. Isolate these, delete hidden, and then let's turn on double. That's under your display properties at the very bottom of your tool menu down here. So now you got a line down the middle. Now when we go to stroke, under the curve frame mesh here, we can frame our polygroups. So that'll put a curve right down the middle. And then any of these things here, say we'll put a zipper down there. So we can take any of these zipper curve meshes here, and then we can just tap this stroke, and it'll go ahead and put a zipper right down the middle of that line we did. If we don't like that, we can grab anything, as long as it's a curve brush, and it has curve, give me a second, army curve here. Let's say we want to do like a bike chain. We can just make a bike chain down the middle of this, and you can make the bike chain bigger or smaller by increasing or decreasing your brush size here. So let's make it fill up that space here. You can also change your depth here. So if you want to move the depth to the other side, you can. I'll pop it to this side here. That'll work. So let's say we like this. Usually what I would do is like kind of tap off, but see how that little red string's sticking to it? If you want to get rid of that red string or dumb it down a little bit, change that curve snap distance to like 10. And now you can just tap off and that'll delete the curve. Alternatively, stroke, delete curve. And now I can just do split on mass points. There it is. So now we have a bike chain that follows down our original Z-sphere path here. Let's see, mat cap. Here's our bike chain. Here we guess we don't need that anymore. Now you might need to do a little bit of moving around. So let's turn on transparency with ghost turned on, and now we can just kind of go through here. Oops, do we have topological on? That would be why. Now we can go through here with our move brush and just kind of tweak this thing around a little bit. And it did, it did follow that line, so I can still use that original thing we put in there. So it also, oh, you know what? It looked like it doubled up that bike chain. I might have made a mistake there. But a couple different methods to go through and put a bunch of wires on your character. And even if, let's say we go, oh, we deleted that one. So even if we take this one, we can hold down Control and drag off a copy and just kind of position it near, and then you can take this new one here. You can kind of wind it in and out and around, and you can kind of just put these things wherever. So you can do multiple you can kind of separate these things out maybe a little bit. And then when you have these two wires here, you can go, you know what, I'm going to duplicate this, and I'm going to go ahead and dynamesh these things together on the duplicate. And then I'm going to go through here. I'm going to do a trim curve. And I'm going to trim you. You know what? Let's not do trim. Let's do slice, because I want to do it in a couple different places. Trim is basically slicing and then closing a hole. I'm going to do a slice curve. So I'm going to do a slice curve here. And then we're going to do a slice curve here. And I'm going to isolate those two places here. So there's a polygroup. Here's a polygroup, delete hidden. And now that I've got those two, I can go down here to ZRemesh, depth size down to 0.5, and I can just ZRemesh. Oops, let's turn off X symmetry here. Are we on the same one side? Yeah. Maybe that's too low. Let me see, hold on. Delete, hidden, and then we'll do same, and then we'll do half. Yeah, these are really kind of crumbly meshes. Let's go ahead and do a quick polish just to kind of give ZRemesh a slightly better mesh to ZRemesh. There we go, much better. So now we have just like a little envelope here that we can now do a QMesh polygroup all. Or you know what, let's do all polygons. So this will be like a little wrap we put around the little bike chain where they come together. So you can kind of wrap those two. Like so. And if you want to get fancier with these, you can feel free to Z-model them up however you'd like. Cool. Hey everybody, thanks for showing up. Is there a way to center the gizmo to view as sometimes it's way up the screen? Yeah, so I kind of sometimes wish there was a shortcut. If for some reason, like your gizmo was way over there, and you're modeling on this thing, all you have to do is hold down Alt with, as long as you know you have Move selected, just Alt and tap your object. It'll go ahead and center it wherever you tap. So yeah, there's not a hotkey for doing that, but you can just Alt and then you can just tap on your object and move it just with Alt held down, and that'll kind of stick it there, and then you have access to it really quickly. So. Yeah, and there's also, so this whole manual process of like making a Z-sphere, let's go ahead and, ooh, do I have that installed? Hold on. I'm trying to remember, I don't think I have it installed here. Dang it. Let me think. Let me see if I can find it real quick. Maybe we can install it really quickly. It would be ZBrush, wait, Central, Z-sphere convert to a curve, yay! Oh. Useful scripts and macros for ZSpheres 4.8. Okay, so there's a thread here. Let me link you guys to it. Let's take a look through here. Curve helper. Create curves from ZSpheres. So instead of doing that manual process, we can use curve helper, which is somewhere on here. Let's go ahead and install it. Plugin will create a curve from a Z-sphere chain allowing greater precision. So all that stuff. So unzip the zip files. Let's go ahead and save link as to our desktop here. Show in folder. Okay. Unzip the zip file. So unzip extract. Where are we at? Unzip this file and open any containing folder created in the unzip. Copy the curveshelper.z script to your ZBrush 4.8 ZStartup zplug64 folder. So we got the Z script here from our curves helper, so we'll go ahead and copy this, and we'll go to ZBrush 4.8 ZStartup zplug64. Go ahead and paste that in there. So we got curves helper. You should now have a new subpalette called Curves Helper in the Z plugin palette with two buttons called Copy Z-sphere chain and Create Curve. So we're going to append a Z-sphere to the model, which we just did, and then we make, we're going to select that Z-sphere chain, and then when we're ready, we press Copy Z-sphere chain, and then we switch to the subtool we want to add the curve to and press Create Curve. Root Z-sphere, the one you start with, must be at the end of the chain. Create a single chain, branches will not work. Okay, let's see if we can get this to work. So in order to get this to show up, let's go ahead and just do a quick save. You can hit 9 for a quick save. We'll go ahead and shut down ZBrush. Start it back up. Give this a shot. So because we did a quick save, we can go into our quick saves here and we can just do, let's say quick save, this one is the last quick save we have open. There we go. So let's make a new ZSphere chain. So subtool, append, ZSphere. Did I link you guys? Yeah, okay. So we'll hit E on the ZSphere and we'll scale it down. And let's say we want, let's go and scale this down here. Let's say on this neck here, we want a port on the neck. Let's go ahead and change the resolution just a little bit. There we go. We'll put a little port here on the neck. And then the ZSphere here, we can move that into place. And then we'll start making a ZSphere chain. I'm just going to drag this, with W, way down here into the hand. And then again, we can hit Q and just start moving these points where we want them to go. Kind of wrap it around our character like this. Oh, we can do a better job than that. There we go. Something like this. So we have our ZSphere chain. And let's see if I remember how to do this. So we got our ZSphere here, and then we're going to want to load up our Z plugin folder. And then we should have a curves helper folder in here. We have a copy ZSphere chain and create curve. So let me see if I understand these instructions. Create a chain of ZSpheres, positioning how you want relation to the other subtool. When ready to copy the ZSphere chain, press the Copy ZSphere Chain button. ZSphere chain copied. Switch to the subtool that you want to add the curve to. So we want to add it to, you know what, let's just do append polymesh 3D here. And I'll go ahead and just do a size deformation. We'll just size it down. It can just be there. So we got this polymesh selected, then we do create curve. Curve created. And now we have a curve sitting there. So instead of going through the manual process of grabbing those two and making a polygroup and framing the mesh, it went ahead and just created that curve for me. And now we can go to brush, insert. Let's just insert cylinder hose thing. We can just tap that. That'll go right down our ZSphere chain. We can tap off, and there we go. Tweak it a little bit, not too shabby. That's about where I wanted it to go. Cool. Nine Title says, I have a quick question. I want to do some engraving for my gun project. I'm having trouble with the amount of resolution needed for painting a mask fine enough for the level of detail I have. Can you give me some advice? Yeah, so for engravings, you might want to check out Live Boolean. Yeah, if you want to make a mask, so let's talk about this. Let's do an engraving real quick. Let's do a plain 3D, make polymesh 3D. And you know what else we're going to need to do? We're going to need to grab this thing. And we're going to need to initialize, this is a Q cube, and we're going to do some engraving with this. So what I'm going to do, it's the same way I would do maybe stylized hair, but we'll go ahead and change this to a 45-degree angle, and we'll scale this out. And we'll do a bevel edge loop complete, like so. And then we'll hold down Control Shift, and we'll grab this top one, make it one polygroup, this bottom one, make it one polygroup. And now if we can hit B, create insert mesh new, and now we've got an insert mesh brush. So now we need to go in here to the stroke menu, and we need to say curve mode, and now we've got a curve mode. And then we need to weld these things up, and also we want to go thick to thin because we're going to be doing some engraving. So we go intensity, size, I forget which one I need to have on, but we'll do both. And we'll go thick to thin, and then we'll go to our brush. We'll go to modifiers, and we will say weld points. We can turn on a little bit of stretch and curve resolution if we end up using those. There we go. So now we have our engraving brush here. So let's You can also crease this right now if you want to, or build in control loops, but should we? Yeah, we should. So there's one. Now on this one, I'm going to go ahead and just do a crease tolerance, just to go ahead and crease these edges for me. And then we'll go ahead and do a brush, create insert mesh append. So now we've got two versions of this. One's creased, one's not. And then in this one, we'll do the exact same thing. So we've got to crease. Our curve mode's already turned on for this brush, but I do need to turn on weld points. But we did maintain the thick to thin, which is nice. So we've got that. And you know what else I'm going to do? I'm going to turn off snap. I don't want it to get all snappy on the surface necessarily past the first initial stroke. So we'll go to our PolyMesh 3D plane here. This one. Fine. You know what? Grab a new one. There we go. And then we got our mesh here, so we can go through here and we can start making engravings. I'm gonna do depth here. So basically, long story short, if you did want to do engravings, you can do engravings where you like want to mask and inflate, or stamp an alpha. But if you can, this might be another alternative, just so that you can have a little bit more control and you don't need to worry about resolution, because you can use this as a live Boolean later. So we can say, okay, I got this one here, and let's say we want to do another one here. We can maybe overlap these a little bit. So let's say that'll be our engraving for now. So in order, and this can actually, those will actually work just fine. We can hit D for dynamic subdivision. You can see that'll give us a nice and sharp result. If you want to overlap these more, what you can do is, just like we did before earlier this morning, we can turn on topological for our move brush here. Beep, boop, dee, dee. Oops, not directional. There it is. Preferences, edit, line cursor to surface. And I'm going to go ahead and isolate just these things, so we're not playing with the plane there. And we can say, hey, you know what? You guys come up just a little bit. And you know what? Let's go ahead and split it off of that plane. So now we have this thing. So it's like, okay, that's great, but I wanted that on a gun, right? Or I wanted it on another surface. So in this case, what you could do is, let's go ahead and make another surface. Let's say we want to start out with a cylinder. Make PolyMesh 3D. And we'll go ahead and hold down Control Shift, mask this out, hold down Control, and this will be our new surface we want to put that on. And we'll go ahead and do a crease, dynamic, crease level of 3, smooth subdiv of 5 maybe. Let's give us a nice smooth cylinder on here. So we want to put this engraving on this curved surface here. So we go back to our engraving here, and we go, okay, is my engraving. Couple different ways we can do this. One way, if you want to go the alpha route, which I wouldn't suggest doing because again you're going to be limited by resolution, you can just go like say out of edit mode, and you can choose MRGB Z grabber. You can say, you know what, give me that depth grab. So now you can use this alpha depth, for example, make PolyMesh 3D, divide it up. And then we can go standard brush. Let's go ahead and clone off our standard brush so we don't mess it up. Drag rect, depth grab, focal shift down to -100, and now you can just drag this out. So now you can go through here, or you can hold down Alt if we're doing engravings, right? You can do that. But if you want to put it on if you want to have a little bit more control, I would take this one here, and we would go B, create insert mesh, new. And then we can take it to that curved surface we were playing with. And then on here, we can just drag that out. And it's not going to wrap to our object very well, so we got to go back here. And let's do, under modifiers here, we're going to do projection strength up to 100. And now as we drag that out, it's going to stick to the underlying surface. And let's play with that depth a little bit too. You can kind of embed it in our object as we drag it out. Now, a cool thing we can do is we can go to append doesn't really matter, PolyMesh 3D here. And inside of here, we're just going to make this small. and we're going to say you're a subtractive mesh. We're going to turn on live Boolean, and now that this is a subtractive mesh, no matter what I drag on here, it's going to go ahead and, oops, dang it, we need to, unfortunately, with projection strength on, we need to have this cylinder active. So what we got to do is we got to go ahead and drag it out on this object, and then we're going to do a split mask points, and then we can merge these down and make it subtractive. So now you have a live Boolean of your engraving here, like this. So you can go through here, and we still have topological on, but if you don't, you can turn topological off, and you can go through here and you can just manually adjust or change how these things work, for example, and then I'll just kind of engrave on there, or you can even go in here with your brush that you made with live Boolean on, and this is subtractive, and you can just immediately go through here and start engraving right on your object. This is kind of like using the chisel brush as well, but this is like a live Boolean version of the chisel brush here, so you can just kind of go through here and start making your engravings like this. So you don't have to use like an insert mesh brush necessarily. That's if you wanted to do something a little bit more intricate on a flat surface first, but while you're just kind of on here, you just go through here and, you know, filigree or whatever you want to do. And these don't have to be this simple. Again, it can be anything. So B, C, our brush insert BI, army curve, bullets. You can go through here and you can, let's go ahead and say, what are we looking at here? Polyframe here. Okay, we got to play with the depth on these ones too. So drag that depth down. There you go. So now you can just live Boolean bullets on your mesh here. Let's go ahead and redrag that. Also, if you want, you can drag off and then hold down Shift, and that'll wrap around. I'm using these are getting smoothed at the same time. So let's do Shift D. There we go. Is it going to do it? Maybe not. Oh, you know what? Maybe I need to have Snap turned on. I did turn that off. Sorry. Oh, it is on. Oh, you know what? I need the cylinder active. So we can hold down Shift, and then we can wrap this around like so, and then we can go ahead and split mask points. And then on this one, we can say you are subtractive. And now we have a live Boolean version of this engraving that's just a live Boolean mesh on here. So if you need a little bit more control, and it's not that difficult, it'll just give you a lot crisper, smoother results if you just use like maybe modeling instead of, like you said, you know, masking and engrave. Because when you do a mask and then you inflate or deflate it, it's kind of limiting. Then you got to go in and clean it up and polish it up. I prefer to work with separate meshes and just do that. Cool. Thanks for stopping by, Calvin. We got a few more minutes. We'll be on a little bit longer. Yeah, and okay, yeah. If you're just starting here, let me spam you guys some more. So a lot of the stuff we've been talking about, you know, you can go here to my playlist. I do my live stream on Thursdays. I do Pixelogic's live stream on Tuesdays, which is when we're at now. If you want to go back through those, here's my Pixelogic's live stream. So here's a lot of Zbrush resources for you. Even if you're just getting started, go to the Intro to ZBrush or the Pixelogic Classroom, and that'll walk you through the basics of ZBrush. And then Intro to ZBrush on my YouTube. Intro to ZBrush 4R8 is where you'll find a lot of that live Boolean stuff we were talking about. And if you want to do live Boolean stuff's really cool. So we can go through here. Let's go ahead and append another star here. There we go. We got a star. And just like always, I want to initialize that to a Q cube, and then I want to unify that Q cube, and then I want to scale it down. If you guys watched ZBrush Summit on, it was Chi Vang did a presentation. He had some really cool methods, so definitely check that out on the Pixelogic channel. I can walk you through some of it if I remember and do it correctly. So we can, let's say we want to like mask the bottom part of this off, we can hold down Control, we can just start, let's go to Unmesh Mesh Center here, so we can start just like maybe cutting a panel through here. I'm just holding down Control and adding new edge loops like this. You know what, let's just pull this one down, and then we'll pull this one out. Like this. So now since we're doing live Boolean, we can just go ahead and make that subtractive, and now that'll go ahead and cut a panel through here. We can go through and we can do like an inflate if we want to make that panel bigger or smaller. We can also be a little bit fancier with our panels here, so we can go through here, we can do like a bevel, edge loop, complete, like this, and we can say, let's go into solo mode, and we'll go ahead and mask these panels. Oh wait, did I have something beveled and masked here? Oh, unmask all that. Sorry about that. I can bevel all this. And then Control Alt, unmask this. We can pull this in a little bit maybe. And then we can pull this one down a little bit. And you know what, let's do, I need a little bit of a helper in here. Let's go ahead and do insert, we'll do an inset. We'll do inset polygroup all, we'll pull this in, we'll do a region. There we go. And now if I want to, I can mask this poly loop. We can mask this entire poly loop, invert that mask, and now I can go through here and I can modify this panel cut. So now I go out of here and go into solo mode. You can see we just updated that panel here. And again, we can still go through here. We can inflate. If we hit D, that'll give us like an averaged version of this. So if we go through here and we do like a crease, let's do crease all. So that'll go ahead and sharpen up our edges. And then here, again, we can still do our inflate if we're doing a cut across here. We can also go through here and we can do a geometry bevel, and you can soften out those edges just a little bit or a lot, depending on how much of a bevel you put in there. Again, I'm not giving you anything new. This is all from the ZBrush Summit, the Chivang ZBrush Summit talk, so definitely go check that out. You know what? Let me sit here and talk about it. Let's go get it. I'll give it to you guys. See if I can find it. Wait for it. So, oh, also, when you go to Pixelart YouTube, you go to the video section of the playlist, you can go through everybody's live streams, and then let's just do a search. Hard surface with ZBrush 4R8 Chivang. I'll link you guys to this one. Really good talk. Obviously, this guy's incredible, right? Check that out. So this is just one of his techniques here. So while you're doing all this kind of stuff, and then if you have a cool library of stuff, which you guys do have built in, if you go to BI brush insert live Booleans here, you can say, okay, this is a subtractive mesh, and then you can go through here, you can hit, let's hit M. We can start putting in some details on here, so we'll put in a detail here. So if you just drag this out, we can put in like a live Boolean detail here, we can hold down Control, and mirror this to the other side. Let's also hit X to go across X symmetry. I'm not even sure where I'm at in space. Oh boy, I'm all sideways. So let's go ahead and orient ourselves correctly. This will be good. So Z forward is where I like to work, and then so I can work across the X axis. So let's go ahead and I'm going to turn off the live Boolean render. That's up here, by the way. I can go move multiple, hold down Shift, turn X off if you had it on, and then we can rotate this 90 degrees. It's not perfectly centered. Let's see if I can go down here to position, change that X position to 0, and then we'll Alt tap this one here, and again change this X position to 0. There we go. So now we're centered, we're Z forward. We can turn X on now, and we can turn live Boolean render back on. So now I can go through here with these brushes and go across X symmetry, and we can just go ahead and start adding cool insert mesh stuff. And on the side here, we can try this, and it's like, you know what, I don't like that, so hit W, and then you can just cycle through all these different ones here, so we can kind of see if there's something that catches our attention as we're going through our cool brushes here. And if we like that, we can go through here and turn off move all. So we can go through here, we can scale this up or down. We can push this in or out, like so. We can make a new copy of it if we want to. And we got our cool little thing. We can also go back to our original cylinder if we want to kind of clean this up a little bit and go, you know what, that's not really working for me. So let's go ahead and do insert single edge loop, hold down Alt. We'll get rid of this one. And now we can go, we can even scale this edge loop complete if we want to. We can scale it down, or we can bevel it, but I guess scale will work. So we can scale this down here, and let's go ahead and crease this edge loop complete here. So now we can hit D again. So we've updated our base mesh. Now, so we can take these new live booleans here. So we'll say, you know what, guys, you need to move a little bit. So we go ahead and go to Unmesh Mesh Center, and we'll go ahead and move these in. We can scale them down just a little bit. Let's turn on LSim. You can rotate these around a little bit too. We got that. And then these guys here, we can isolate these ones. You got to move these around a little bit because we did change our overall shape. We can mask this one. We can move this one in. It's like, you know what, this one I want to be smaller. And actually, you know what, this one, let's go ahead and do, I wonder if it'll just work. Let's go brush, insert, Boolean here. Can we just swap that if we hit W? Yeah, we can just swap that out. There we go. That's more of the look I was looking for. Let's go ahead and give that a little bit more room. Cool. So we got our cool little thing. And always remember, you can use just basic stuff too. So let's go ahead and grab a cube mid, and we'll go ahead and just drop a cube cube mid right down the middle. Yeah, that'll work. Like so. And we'll go ahead and do a, let's go ahead and split this one off into its own subtool here. It'll still be subtractive, but now what I can do, I can push this down and in, and we'll get a little bit fancy here. So we'll go ahead and push this out, and let's go into solo mode here. And for this one, let's go ahead and do a bevel edge loop complete, and then we'll mark the bottom ones here. Let's turn off the floor, and we'll do Q mesh polygroup. Single poly would work fine. We can pull this out, and then we can do our crease tolerance here. Let's drop that down just a little bit more. So we've got this little crease piece here. So now when you go to solo mode, you can see that's the change we're making. So we can kind of just pop in a little thing here. If we want to also on the sides, let's go ahead and do Q mesh polygroup all. Let's just do a crease all. If we're doing this kind of thing, we can even do a Q grid, might be a better choice here, but that'll work fine. Then we can isolate this polygroup by control tapping on it, and then we can go to the Unmesh Mesh Center, and we can just put these in here. There we go. So we can kind of get a shape like this. Scale it in a little bit. And it just geometry, so we want to put details all along the top here. We can go through here, and we can turn on ArrayMesh, and we can say, you know what, we could do the offsets. I'm just going to use transpose, hit Y, just like we did first thing this morning, and we're just going to pull this forward, and we're also going to change the repeats in here. So now we can just kind of dial in. Oh, we can also do scale. We can just dial in how far we want it to go, and then how many repeats we want along here. And it's like, okay, that's not really the thing I wanted to use. I'm not really digging that, so I'm going to turn ArrayMesh off just so we can kind of focus on this. And it's like, you know what? I'm going to bring this in. Let's do QMesh polygroup all. We can just snap that back in here. And if we want, we can even, let's clip that back. Let's flatten those out a little bit better. And let's say, you know what, instead what I wanted to do is I wanted to do an inset polygroup all first. Sorry, I accidentally hit Shift S with a snapshot. So we want to do an inset first, and then Now we can do another inset, and now we can do a Q mesh. Let's say that's what I wanted to look for. And you know what? This is kind of gross. Let's fix that real quick. Let's hit Y. There we go. And we'll do a crease hole. So if this is more of the look I was looking for here. If we've got that, then we can turn our ArrayMesh back on, and then that's all updated like that. So now we've got our cool little Boolean thing. All right, I'm gonna start wrapping it up. Cool, yeah, exactly. Yeah, having a library of this stuff is going to make your life so much easier. Let's see, trying to catch up here. Yeah, the resulting meshes with ZRemesher, sometimes that'll work, sometimes it won't. It's kind of dependent. Oh, that also reminds me, you don't even have to use, let's turn off this here. Let's go ahead and do, instead of all that, insert multiple edge loops here. We can do, let's make something real quick. We got our star here. Brush insert Boolean here. And then we want to do, I'm trying to think if I can get one of these easily with a hole on the back here. I guess any of them will work. We'll grab the switch. So if we take this top part here, and then we go ahead and do a delete hidden, and then we go to brush, create insert mesh, new, and then go back to what we're working on. On here, we can go, I want to stick that right in here. So what I'm going to do is go to brush, insert multi-mesh, and then I can just put this on here. I guess I don't need that many. Now because this has a hole in the back, if I drag this out and then control drag and I don't have Dynamesh turned on, it'll go ahead and mesh fusion that for me. So that way you don't have to worry about getting nice topology. You can keep your nice topology and do that. You can also turn off the smooth modifier so that it'll go ahead and keep that nice and sharp as well. So now it's just geometry. So you can hit D, subdivide it, and it's nice and on there. Alternatively, you can also do let's go back here. If you want to do an inverted version, you can hold down Alt, and that'll stick it right underneath the surface, and then that'll be inverted. And now you can just do mesh fusion. So it's built in, and then you can go through here and you can just modify this. It's like, you know what? I want to bevel that edge loop here, and then I want to Q mesh that out or in. Like so. Cool. All right, guys. I'm going to head out. Thanks for showing up. This will be up on their YouTube channel under my Pavlovich workshop later on. Is the mask curve pin pretty much useless? Mask curve pin, brush, mask. I should just, okay, so if you hold down Control, there's a mask curve pin. So if we have a polymesh sphere 3D, a sphere, make polymesh 3D. So if you hold down Control and drag that out, and then you Control tap on that curve, that'll just kind of rub that, that'll rub that curve brush on your mesh. So you can use that to kind of get really precise. And you can also make your brush size smaller, I guess. I don't use it very much, but now that I play with it, it's kind of neat. So yeah, just you gotta tap the curve and kind of just, it'll kind of mask along that curve. Cool. All right. Thanks, everybody. Have a good day. Hopefully I got everybody's questions. I try to keep up on the chat. So, you guys take it easy. I'll see you next. Exactly. Yeah. So I'll see you guys next week. Next Tuesday I'll be on. I might miss the Tuesday after that, and then this Thursday I should be live streaming on my channel if I can be awake for it. I've got a lot of stuff going on. But thanks again, everybody. See y'all next week.